President Trump suggests an unnamed senior official in his own administration is a traitor. That official published an anonymous article in the New York Times claiming to be part of a resistance inside the administration. The person claims to be thwarting Mr. Trump's more misguided impulses until he's out of office. The president demanded on Twitter, the Times must, for national security purposes, turn him or her over to the government at once. The paper defended the op-ed, saying it adds significant value to the public's understanding of what is going on inside the Trump administration. Major Garrett is at the White House. Major, good morning.
Good morning. We asked the White House what specific national security standard justified the president's demand for the identity of this op-ed author. We got no reply. For his part, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he didn't write it. He was never really suspected. But speculation here and among former officials has focused on a deeply disgruntled member of the president's diplomatic or national security team.
The failing New York Times has an anonymous editorial. Can you believe it? Anonymous, meaning gutless, a gutless editorial.
After spending the previous 24 hours dismissing charges of a chaotic White House found in Bob Woodward's new book, President Trump turned his attention to denunciation from within in the form of an anonymous op-ed in the New York Times from a senior Trump official.
He's part of the resistance within the Trump administration. This is what we have to deal with.
The op-ed said the author and others are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. The piece, which drew withering White House criticism, goes on to say, the root of the problem is the president's amorality. Mr. Trump's leadership style was described as impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. Moreover, the author said his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions that have to be walked back.
They don't like Donald Trump, and I don't like them because they're very dishonest people.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders called the author selfish and said this coward should do the right thing and resign.
The book means nothing. It's a work of fiction.
The fallout from Woodward's book also continued. In one passage, the president reportedly describes his apology for not initially denouncing neo-Nazis after a deadly 2017 white supremacist rally, the biggest expletive mistake I've ever made. I didn't do anything wrong in the first place. Why look weak?
Look back at Woodward's past. He had the same problem with other presidents. He likes to get publicity, sell some books.
But even the president's most ardent defenders in Congress say Woodward and his book should be taken seriously and say there is a support system, an apparatus they called it, built around the president to withstand his volatile and unpredictable ways. John?
Major, speaking of books, your new one will be called Mr. Trump's Wild Ride, which seems an apt title on This Morning. You, in the reporting you did for that book, how much does that match up with what you read in that op-ed in the New York Times?
Well, on the idea that there are those officials who consider things they stopped from happening as important as accomplishments achieved by this administration, completely consistent. But, John, there is one thing about that op-ed that I never found in all of my interviews with senior administration officials, past and present. Any conversation at all, at any level, about invoking the 25th Amendment and using that dimension of the Constitution to deal with an impaired president incapable of doing his job. I never came across that in all of my reporting, and I am very skeptical about that particular part of the op-ed.
All right, Major, the 25th Amendment mentioned in that op-ed as a way to remove the president from office.
There's a lot to dissect.
Which would take action by the cabinet, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, thank you, Major.
Thank you, Major.